In the current footballing landscape, Lukaku is seen as a joke when compared to other top strikers. Oftentimes, Lukaku is criticized for his inability to actually play football, visibly lacking in the technical department. On top of this, he's also seen by footballing fans as a striker who's not as clinical as he claims to be. However, this wasn't always the case for Lukaku. Matter of fact, he was once seen as an incredibly promising young player who was meant to take over the striker position wherever he went. After some promising seasons for Anderlecht, he then moved to Chelsea, where his career was meant to skyrocket from there. Despite reaching some highs, one could definitely say that he never reached the level that he was touted to reach. For me, that begs the question, where did it all go wrong for Romelu Lukaku, a promising young striker who quickly became a laughingstock in the footballing world? Well boys, in today's video I wanted to explore Lukaku and his club career, as well as touching a little bit on what he has done for the Belgian national team. I'll be diving into the numbers he's put up, his actual performances on a football pitch, as well as some of his off the pitch antics, which have led many people to essentially make fun of the guy. It's about time we decide if Lukaku is as bad as the media portrays him, or if he's just a misunderstood world-class number 9. And boys, before we get into Romelu Lukaku, I do want to say thank you guys for the support in the most recent videos. If you do enjoy the content, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let's try and hit a like goal of 20 likes for this video. As I mentioned, videos stay coming every week of this month. Let's keep pushing. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, boys. Make sure you guys comment down below what you guys think of Romelu Lukaku and how highly you rate him in the totem pole of strikers in the current day. With that being said, boys, let's take a dive into Lukaku's career. As I mentioned before, Lukaku was poised to be a star since his time with Anderlecht. Having scored a whopping 131 goals in 93 games for the youth side, he had earned his call up to the main team in the 08-09 season. However, Lukaku would have to take a year to really establish himself, which is understandable for any young player. Once the 09-10 season came along, Lukaku definitely did not hold back any longer. He would go on to score 15 league goals for Anderlecht this season, helping the Belgian side come first in the league and win the playoffs to secure the league title. Lukaku's pace, power, and finishing ability for his age was absolutely incredible. To follow up this season, Lukaku then put up 20 goals in 50 appearances in all competitions. This time around, both he and Anderlecht fell short in the league. For Lukaku, he would score 3 goals less this year in the league. And for Anderlecht, despite coming first in the league table, finished third in their playoff table. However, this did not stop the Lukaku hype train at all. By this point in time, he was being linked with Chelsea pretty heavily. Naturally, Lukaku would draw comparisons to Didier Drogba, as both players possess the power and lethal finishing to cause any defender nightmare. On August 6, 2011, Lukaku joined Chelsea for just 20 million euros. While he was not a bona fide star yet, this transfer at the time felt like it could be exactly what Chelsea needed. They now had a young and hungry striker to learn the ropes from Drogba, Torres, and Anelka. Any young striker's dream right there. Because of the fact that he was behind the names listed on the striker totem pole, Lukaku didn't actually feature much for the London side this season. He would end up playing 9 games with the reserve league, where he actually scored 7 goals and only featured 8 times for the main starting 11, where he did not register a single goal. Despite the setback for Lukaku, this was not going to deter him from cementing his name among the rest of the Premier League greats. Chelsea felt that what would be best for Lukaku would be a loan. Very typical for Chelsea to have this thought process. This would allow the young striker to gain valuable minutes that would help him further develop. On August 10th, 2012, Lukaku joined West Brom on loan. Here we go. Lukaku, who had previously struggled to get any game time at Chelsea and did not show much to write home about when he did play, absolutely lit the Premier League up for West Brom. At just 19 years old, Lukaku went on to score 17 goals across 38 games for West Brom. All 17 of those were in the Premier League. Despite coming off the bench for the first half of the season, Lukaku would prove himself useful thanks to his pace, power, and finishing ability. When West Brom needed him the most, he would be there. Lukaku even spoiled Fergie's going away party by scoring a hat-trick against United on the final day of the season. Even though Lukaku had shown what he was capable of, Chelsea still felt that his services were not needed at the club at that very moment. In the next season, Lukaku would join Everton on a season-long loan on the final day of the 2013 summer transfer window. His first season with Everton was essentially a follow-up from his time with West Brom. Lukaku managed to bag 16 goals in 33 appearances for the Toffees, further showing he did have the ability to produce successful campaigns in the Premier League. Being only 20 years old, it was clear that the future was extremely bright for the young Belgian. After such a great loan spell with the club, Everton made Lukaku's move permanent in the summer 2014 transfer window for a club record 28 million euros. Unfortunately for Lukaku, he wouldn't be able to have a successful campaign for the 3rd time in a row. He would prove to be incredibly inconsistent this time around, finishing with only 10 league goals as a whole. However, he did finish with 20 goals across 48 appearances. To date, this was actually the most games he had ever played in a single campaign, which could have been one of the reasons for the inconsistent season he had been having. However, one thing did begin to creep up for Lukaku was the criticism he was getting for the lack of his technical ability, particularly his first touch and his dribbling. Fans were beginning to pick up on the fact that his first touch was was letting him down more often than not. This was gonna be a trend that would last throughout his entire career, but at this point in time, you would think he's young, he has potential, he has room to really work on this aspect of his game. Despite these circumstances, Lukaku would see a return to form in the 15-16 season. In this campaign, he would score 25 goals in 46 games across all competitions. At this point in time, Lukaku has had more successful seasons in the Premier League than he had poor ones. For a striker of this caliber, at this age, you would expect for all signs to point to an eventual exit for Lukaku from Everton. There's no way that a striker of this caliber with this potential would remain at this club. Well, this all came to a head in the 16-17 season. In the very season where Lukaku would become Everton's all-time top goal scorer in the Premier League, he would come out to question Everton's ambition to win big trophies. Remember when I mentioned his off-the-field antics? This sent major shockwaves as you had this young striker who had been doing wonders at Everton coming out and making these type of statements. Everton is a very passionate club with very passionate fan base. This fan base was not going to respond well to this type of treatment from one of their star players. Lukaku made it extremely clear that he was ready to leave Merseyside for bigger pastures. In his final season with Everton, he would put up his personal best of 26 goals in 39 appearances. Talk about making an exit. All eyes were now on Lukaku as he would now be choosing a new home. My man thought he was LeBron James in 2010 making his decision. He was ready to take his talent to South Beach. On July 10th, 2017, Lukaku signed for the great and glorious Manchester United. United was coming off Mourinho's first season where they just about whimpered to a 6th place finish. Yet a Europa League victory meant that for Lukaku, he would finally be making his Champions League debut. With multiple inconsistent seasons from RCL, if you haven't checked out that video, make sure you check it out after this one. United needed Lukaku to come into the side and light up the league. And to be fair to the Belgian, he didn't do too bad in his first season. Given that he also had to share the forward line with Rashford, Ibrahimovic, Martial, and eventually Alexis Sanchez, he did manage to score 27 goals in 51 appearances. It wasn't his best campaign by any shadow of a doubt, but those 16 goals were definitely vital for the club. However, question marks did quickly spring up for Lukaku's performances. Firstly, people questioned Lukaku's ability to perform against the top teams in the league. Described as a flat-track bully, Lukaku to date had not been able to put up a big performance in games where United really needed him to pop up with a goal. Secondly, we go back to Lukaku's poor technical ability. Now being the striker for one of the biggest clubs in the world and no longer being an up-and-coming star, Lukaku was in the spotlight whether he liked it or not. With all this attention on him, his inability to control the ball would be on display for the entire world to see. With his first touch letting him down countless times, this was beginning to greatly affect his reputation. Lukaku's follow-up season was a big regression. This season also saw a lot of shifting going on within the club as Mourinho was sacked for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which changed many things. Although United was facing a number of problems that did not solely fall on Lukaku's shoulders, he did not do himself with regards to his performances. He managed to score only 15 goals across 45 appearances, with many of those being off the bench. This was also when Lukaku's issues with the media started to take shape. Let's go over some of the stuff Lukaku did in this season. When asked, Lukaku openly ruled in the possibility of moving to an Italian club. He leaked confidential United data that contained information about speed testing in the club, and he participated in an interview before he left the club where he openly criticized United and stated that he felt he was a scapegoat for many of the club's issues. With an abysmal season and his off-the-field antics, it was safe to say that Lukaku's time at United was over. On August 8th, 2019, Lukaku joined the Italian giants Inter Milan. With Inter manager Antonio Conte booting Icardi out of the squad, he was going to need a new talisman to pair with Lautaro Martinez, and Lukaku was going to be the man for him. Lukaku had nothing but positive things to say in regards to his move to the San Siro, which showed he was committed to putting his career back on track. To an extent, the 1920 and 2021 seasons proved to be a springboard for Lukaku to get back to his best. Despite Serie A's long-running reputation for being a defensively sound league, going from playing in the intensity of the Prem to a much different game was going to be great for the Belgian. He was once again able to use his pace and power to get behind the opposition's defense. In his 2 seasons at Inter Milan, he put up 64 goals in 95 games and helped the club win their first Scudetto in 11 years. Unfortunately for Lukaku, Inter was facing some financial hardships that would force the club to let go of some of their star players. With the footballing world all aware of Inter Milan's circumstances, Chelsea showed interest in Lukaku, which really meant a lot to him. After having left the Premier League on such disastrous terms, seeing the club that took a chance on him when he essentially was still just a young and up-and-coming striker come back for him when he was essentially at his best was an opportunity that he could not pass up. Although football doesn't solely revolve around the Premier League, the media and footballing community really tend to judge players based on the time in that league. So even though Lukaku lit up the Serie A, people were still not convinced that he would make it in the Premier League due to his poor technical ability. On August 12, 2021, Lukaku returned to Chelsea for a staggering 113 million euros. Despite a good start to the 21-22 season, as in the first about 5 games of the season, his return to London went almost as bad as it could get. He had that one sickness that shut the world down in 2020. He fell in and out of the squad. Lukaku had a season to the caliber of his first stint with Chelsea when he was just a teenager. Having scored only 15 goals in 44 appearances across all competitions, Lukaku's inability to perform on the biggest stage was ever so apparent again. Add to this the fact that Lukaku in the middle of the season came out to say that he was not happy at Chelsea, and it was becoming very clear that off the pitch, Lukaku would do whatever he wanted to get his way. He also stated that he was in love with Italy and hoped to return. On July 1st, 2022, Lukaku got his wish and rejoined Inter Milan for the 22-23 season on loan. With Lukaku returning to a club which he clearly stated he had an affinity for, one could assume he would make an instant impact on Serie A. Unfortunately for Lukaku, he was not able to recreate the great seasons that he had for Inter in the past. Having missed 18 games with injury, Lukaku was only able to put up 14 goals in 37 games in all competitions. At this point, Lukaku was losing many of the aspects that allowed him to burst onto the scene in the first place, with his pace and power not quite being the same as before, and at this point his finishing ability was being put into question as well. It had become harder for Lukaku to find and abuse the space in behind defenders. I did also want to say that while in Italy, Lukaku did face issues with racism with fans, which was a problem that isn't exclusive to the Belgian. This is an issue that many black players in Serie A have been dealing with for years. I could easily talk about this in another video if you guys would like to. I just wanted to make sure I didn't glance over this, as Italy is notorious for their treatment of black players, and Lukaku was not excluded in this aspect. So returning to football, after such a dismal season with Inter, Lukaku would return to Chelsea, but then would be controversially loaned out to AS Roma, where he is playing at this point in time. After stating he had such a love for Inter and helping them get back to glory, Lukaku's move to Roma didn't really fall well with the fans. To date, Lukaku has found a little bit of a resurgence at Roma. With 15 goals in 26 games, there could still be time for Lukaku to save his legacy. With Lukaku failing in the Premier League when the lights were the brightest, his perception as a top quality striker had quickly taken a free fall. Add to this the fact that on multiple occasions Lukaku would make headlines in the media for the wrong reasons, and he became even more of a liability in the eyes of the footballing world. In 2023, more people saw headlines of Lukaku because of his appearances with Megan Thee Stallion than because of his appearances on a footballing pitch. To touch on Belgium a little bit, Lukaku actually has a good statistical record for Belgium, believe it or not. With 183 goals and 113 appearances for Belgium, one could say that Lukaku has actually done his job for his country. However, where the criticism lies for Lukaku is similar to the criticism he received for his club career. He has failed to provide when the lights are the brightest. Belgium as a whole have failed in recent years, with their golden generation only having a third place finish in the 2018 World Cup to show. A subject that Macwell actually made a video about in great detail here. In World Cup and in Euros, Lukaku has had many chances to score vital goals for Belgium, but ended up making a fool out of himself. He notoriously had a very bad 2022 World Cup. I believe it's important to keep this in mind as we draw conclusions for Lukaku, due to the fact that he was a spearhead for a star-studded Belgium team that didn't amount to much. Lukaku's career didn't start as quickly as other star young number 9s. After his initial move to Chelsea didn't pan out exactly as many had thought, his loan moves to West Brom and Everton proved to be very crucial springboards for him. Even though he was able to get one good season with United, his time in the spotlight was never the same. Even though he undoubtedly shined in Serie A and has been a crucial part of Inter Milan's resurgence in recent years, he would always be judged for his lack of presence when he is needed the most. His poor technical ability made countless headlines and became synonymous with Lukaku's name. In my opinion, his downfall has largely been a result of this. Had he possessed the ability to control the ball better and be more useful to his teammates in that aspect, the story could have been different for Big Rom. He also never really helped his case with his off-the-field antics. It's hard to trust a player when they have a track record of speaking against the club that they're currently with. Ultimately, despite the great seasons Lukaku has had, he will always be known as that technically limited striker who never achieved anything on the world's biggest stages. So boys, that's essentially an overview of Lukaku's career, kind of that rise that he had in the early 2010s and that fall from grace that we saw in the latter half of the 2010s and the early bit of 2020s. Like I mentioned earlier, boys, let me know what you guys think about Romelu Lukaku in the comments down below. If your current club was about to sign Romelu Lukaku, would you take him at the club, or would you be a little bit hesitant about him? Again, boys, let's shoot for 20 likes. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video to this point. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.